What justified the initiation of war? Self-defense? Humanitarian intervention? War on terror? War against threat of WMD? It's about justification of war. As we talked, there is no war with justice. However, all war initiators insist their war is justified. Some insist self-defense, some insist preventive war, some insist humanitarian reasons, and some insist authorization. On September 11, 1914, the First World War broke out. The declaration of war of Austria-Hungary Empire evoked the war. They declared the war to keep the integrity of the territory and Serbians in the territory. Nationalism had threatened Serbia and evoked another nationalism in Serbia. Allies of them declared the war to keep the oath with their allies. Austria-Hungary Empire declared the war for the revenge of Sarajevo. It was sort of justification with self-defense. In the declaration, the empire blamed Serbia for forcing them to protect their right and interest. All states initiate the war with the cause of offensive, short-range illusion, preemptive attack incentive, and spiral dynamic. However, we all know all illusions got faded out for 5 years of war. It was not for self-defense nor revenge. It was only for the power and colony interest. Britain and France, which finished their integration first, colonized nearly all the Africa and Asia. Therefore, the latecomers Germany and Austria-Hungary Empire demanded their shares. Even between Britain and France had trouble for colonies. Nationalism and problem with colony evoked the First World War. How about the Second World War? On September 1st, 1939, the Second World War broke out. Hitler suggested excessive reparation and sanctions stressed the survival of German nation. It can be sorted as self-defense. He claimed the right to survival of the German ethnic and blamed Jewish as betrayer. Imperial Japan also claimed US forced them to initiate the war. In their declaration of the war, they blamed US for threatening peace of East Asia and Pacific Ocean. It also can be sorted as self-defense. As you know, their claims are nonsense. Because of them, Jewish and Asians who are purely innocent suffered incredible pain. Holocaust, biological experiment, and human slaughter committed by them are just pieces of their crime against humanity. The war was for keeping their political power. The Nazis needed something to unify the people. They chose fascism and the war to get their purport. The Imperial Japanese military party wanted to conquer the Asia. The declaration of the war by the Nazi gave them the chance to do so. Japan evoked the war to stretch their power to all over the Asia. It was all for power. Their necessity evoked the war. How about NATO's intervention in Yugoslav Civil War? On March 31st, 1991, Civil War broke out in the Yugoslavia. UN Security Council made the resolution 713 and 757. They demanded NATO to monitor the sanctions. And on October 9th, UN Security Council made the resolution 781 to set a no-fly zone in Bosnia-Herzegovina. However, from 1993, role of NATO had grown. On February 28, 1994, the first air combat between NATO and Serbia occurred. NATO shot down 4 of Serbian flights and initiated to increase their soldiers in Bosnia. They claimed the genocide and crime against humanity had been committed in the Kosovo. However, there was no clue of that. Civilian casualty is estimated about 10,000 dead and 6,000 seriously injured. Just 576 of them until 1999 are done by FRY forces. Even UN Security Council Resolution 1160, 1199, 1239 demanded to make political peace and territorial integrity in the zone. Yet NATO displaced Kosovo Albanians and destroyed the place with the approximately 23,000 bombs and missiles. Even none of the resolutions authorized the use of force or military intervention by NATO. The true reason of NATO's intervention is to expand the NATO to the Eastern Europe. US always tried to hinder the establishment of anti-US government in European region. NATO and US intervened in the FRY not to improve humanitarian peace, but to expand their influence. How about Bush's war? On September 11, 2001, Al-Qaeda committed inhumane terror on the motherland of America. President Bush decided to punish Al-Qaeda. On October 7th, US officially initiated the war against Afghanistan. Yet, invasion of Afghanistan started on September 1st. On March 20, 2003, US invaded Iraq. Bush government claimed preemptive self-defense war on terrorism (WMD) threat as a justification of the war. However, the war victimized 78 and 300 civilians and cost $2 trillion. Just like Muhajir Rahman said, US has the watches, we have the time. Despite of the high-end military technology of US, the war of anger trapped them. Eventually, on August 31, 2021, all US troops officially withdrew from Afghanistan. Bush needed something to blame for 9/11. It was not for self-defense, war on terrorism, or WMD, but for political power. For this, throughout about 21 years, none of the presidents succeeded to withdraw the troops, admitting the failure. How about Russia-Ukraine war? On February 24, 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. Putin himself claimed NATO and Ukraine violated the past promise that limits the marching of NATO to Eastern Europe. He claims the marching of NATO to Eastern Europe, especially where former Soviet Union, threatens the inevitable state interest. Also, he claims self-defense, genocide in Ukraine, succession, self-determination, protection of national doctrine, humanitarian intervention. But we know Putin fulfills none of the conditions to claim them. No imminent threat from Ukraine. Violating territorial integration. No ask of help from authorized ethnic group or government. Even though there was the promise between Soviet Union and NATO, it is still upon Ukraine based on their principle of sovereign equality. The war is not for just reasons, but for Putin's political power and ego of Russia. There is no justification, but just excuses. War is not for justice or peace, but for just power and interest. Despite of this, still Putin and Biden are arguing the justification of Russia-Ukraine war. Next time, let's think about what we are missing now.